Hi, everyone. I was going to say good morning, but it's the last day and it's in the afternoon, so that didn't make much sense. Do you guys like hotel room TV? Be really honest with me if you're visiting a different country. I travel a lot and I will always watch TV late at night in my hotel room. It's like a guilty pleasure. Last night I was watching television, preparing for this talk, and a commercial came up, and I couldn't have planted this better in my mind. It was talking about a really cute puppy, like a specific black Labrador is a super cute puppy. So the people talking were like, this puppy is adorable. It's got this big fluffy head. It's got this really cute black eyes, soft. It's got the puppy tail. You guys know the little floppy puppy tail? Love it. The commercial was for service animals. And I was confused at first because I didn't know at the outset of the commercial, I wasn't paying that close of attention, whether it was to adopt, but it's a purebred black Labrador, so that didn't make sense, whether it was maybe for some other purpose. Service dog did not come to my mind initially because the entire focus of the commercial was exclusively on whether or not this puppy was cute. It was a very cute puppy, by the way. So we're going to talk about something a little bit controversial. Not quite as controversial as Tobias is, but maybe a little bit within this community it could be. It's on how we as a movement can use the infantilization of animals, the keeping of animals as permanent puppies, little babies, in a way that inadvertently exploits and perpetuates this really difficult power dynamic that continues the exploitation of animals. So the core argument is that animals are often in our own media, as well as popular media, portrayed as permanent babies. A lot of campaigns, including those that I've worked on in the past when I worked for the Animal Legal Defense Fund and other groups, will almost exclusively show you pictures or ads of baby pigs. Almost always baby pigs. If you're trying to appeal to popular media, and I've used this in another talk I give on a similar subject, animal must be baby, must be cute, almost always mammalian, very few chicks, don't know why. It has to have big, beautiful eyes that you can see. And that's where the story kind of ends. Very little in our own media, as well as popular media, do you see animal advocacy that's appealing to a mainstream audience that shows adult animals that are casually autonomous. So I suggest that we perhaps shift this a little bit, allow animals to grow up, and acknowledge and use media in a way that is focused on dignity and the idea that at times animals may not want to be seen, they might not want to be heard, and they may not want to be bothered. So why do we do this? Because it's easy, it's good emotional appeal. So the first video ever posted on YouTube, ever, was of a baby tiger. It was of a baby animal, and it started the trend that has not ended, where cute animal content is the most pervasive content you will ever see on any online digital platform. And this is true of the animal advocacy movement, this is true of popular media generally. Cute animal videos rule the internet literally and figuratively. And in another talk I give is on how this digital media exploitation funnels fake savior videos, where you might have a puppy that someone happens upon. Always be on guard when you see them happening upon a catastrophe and they're already filming. No. And they must save this puppy from the clutches of a boa constrictor, probably in Florida. If you've ever been to the States, Florida is where strange things happen, don't go. And it positions humans, including ourselves, in this role as saviors, guardians, the people who are permanently rescuing whether the animal has been rescued and is capable of living an autonomous life or not. And then animals may thereby remain permanent children who we must care for, we must observe, we must monitor. Are there any parents? There aren't many parents in the animal movement, it's okay. Hi, same. So when I had my daughter first, and I cannot tell you what it feels like to be a new parent. You are constantly checking to see if that 6-pound nugget is dead. Sounds nuts, but you do. So we had to constantly, I would just late at night, like, breathing, we're good, and then go back to sleep. Our relationship with animals creates a similar kind of power structure where we feel like we must constantly be involved to some degree. And that is rooted in this idea that they are children. This is not new to humans either. Historically, it was used against women and other groups as well. Mary Wollstonecraft wrote this amazing book, The Vindication of the Rights of Women, and immediately in counterproduction for this novel concept that women deserve some manner of rights, a gentleman whose name I coincidentally forget, wrote The Vindication for the Rights of Beasts, implying that it was as ridiculous to argue for the rights of animals as it is to argue for the rights of women. Now, I don't know how familiar you guys are with Mary Wollstonecraft. She's an idol. She's amazing. Early vegetarian, obviously. And it was this concept that women will raise children. And because women are the ones raising children, they're going to be the ones raising your sons. You want them to have some manner of education to further the future of humanity. It's kind of a regressive argument, but it's the one that she thought would play at the time. As a lawyer, deep respect. The same kinds of arguments were used in the United States against African American slaves and fresh off the boat African slaves. It was this idea that there is some amount of subjugation, of diminution, of infantilizing that was used at the time by the white slave owners that said, no, you have to take care of them, they can't take care of themselves, it's really difficult, blah, blah, blah. In disability rights, you see the same thing, where there's this presumption of an inability rather than the assumption of ability. And so how do we change that? How do we stop the reduction of any group to childlike status? By the way, don't ask ChatGPT to come up with a photo of Peter Pan as a bunny. It won't do it. So popular media keeps this portrayal. We have different thinkers who have warned against this kind of thought of cute children. But what do we do? How do we stop freezing animals and others in this status of permanent babies that need our help? And what the hell does this have to do with a privacy right? We're getting there, I promise. So Justin Marceau is an amazing attorney who's written countless things on the victimhood trap, this idea that we should stop seeing animals solely as helpless. But there is a difference, right? There's domestic animals. Domesticated animals can't necessarily care for themselves. They do need some manner of care and help. What is care versus control? How do we walk this line between making sure that dogs are properly cared for because they can't care for themselves, animals that we have co-evolved with and bred for so long that they are no longer caring for themselves without exerting this forced control? This is a little different than the typical rights pyramid that you might see. So down at the bottom, AR 101, basic right, don't stab someone, it's bad, causes harm, causes pain. It's the free from bodily harm. Bodily liberty, don't put someone in a cage, let them walk around, give them the freedom of movement. Step 2. Step 3, autonomy and self-determination. Can this individual make their own choices in life? Can they get up when they want, move when they want, leave when they want? Do they have the ability to control their own future? But what's the negative of that, right? For every positive right you have, you also have to have the implicit negative right that counterbalances it. So if you have the right to self-determination, you have the right to autonomy, do you have the right to be not seen, to therefore not be prodded, to not be heard, to not be constantly videotaped? I think it's an open question, and it's something that I've been exploring lately. And then the pinnacle of that would, of course, be personhood, right? So there have been a few studies that have been done on what animals are like when people are watching versus what animals are like when people are not watching. And this is particularly interesting in the wild animal context where you have national parks and perhaps viewing areas for animals that are not confined. They can leave whenever they want, but there's humans that come into the area frequently to view the animals, to take photos of the animals. Pretty high traffic depending on where you're at. There's a national park in the United States called Yellowstone, and there's a high percentage of big, beautiful bison, there's elk, there's wolves. It's amazing, it's beautiful. It's on top of a big volcano that could kill us all at any minute. And those animals act differently than animals you would find anywhere else that are not more frequently viewed. They change their behavior, they have higher stress rates, they have higher aggression, they found, and it changes just their base actions. Animals that are used in digital exhibitions, so animals that are constantly videotaped to be used for YouTube, for Instagram, for TikTok, those animals behave fundamentally differently than animals that are free to live more casual lives. One animal that I would give this talk about a lot last year was a pug named Noodle. Noodle became very popular. Noodle was ancient for a pug, which is something because pugs live a long time. And Noodle's human, who loved him very much, would pick Noodle up and see if Noodle would or could stand, and then Noodle may just kind of flop over if he couldn't that day, and it was called a no bones day, right? I'm sure there's people here who saw it. It was very cute, delightful. No harm was done to Noodle. I don't know that he actually minded, but what are those updates like? Would that human who had Noodle in his home have done that if he wasn't making millions of dollars off of these videos? Would you, as a casual person who has an aging dog who's gonna die soon, pick your dog up every day, see if they stand, videotape this happening, let them fall over or not, post this online, and then make money off of what is ostensibly your dying dog's ability or inability to stand because it's cute? How does that change Noodle's behavior? How did that change their behavior with Noodle? And platforms are increasingly making money off of cute animal videos. It fuels the wildlife industry. I have a whole separate talk on this. It's not for today, but that's also for that other talk. We can talk about it some other time. Cute animal videos feed exotic pet trade. Don't do it. I know it's hard. So how do we do it? How do we contribute to this problem? And is it all bad? Is there something different about intentionally telling the stories of animals who genuinely need their stories changed, right? This wouldn't be undercover investigation videos. Those animals are certainly not infantilized. Yes, you're taking photos and videos of them, obviously, but you're doing that with the dignity to tell their story, to change their circumstances, right? And that's all that most animal people are trying to do. What are the intentions? Is it with this savior complex? Are you perpetuating this victimhood trap where you're undermining the long-term advocacy? And how can it incentivize and monetize and drive people further into non-animal movement content? So there was a video that came out on an organization that I worked for a long, long time ago that was about a puppy mill bust that I'd worked on. And the video had shown like the beagles when they were in this terrible situation, really gross, really sad. And then you hop over here to the next 30 seconds, and it's the cute beagles frolicking in the grass. They're so happy they'd never touched grass before. Their little puppy tails going crazy. They're so excited. And the next video that would queue up was from a beagle breeder on how to go buy the beagles. Not those beagles, but beagles. And so are we sharing our videos, our photos, our data in a way that is helpful or harmful in the long run? How can we be intentional about that? And I will note, as I was building this, all these photos you see in here, I either took myself or were from We Animals Media, which does an excellent job of providing ethical photos and stock photos of animals for people to use when they're doing things like this. And what is our responsibility? Do we have a responsibility to think about the downstream content? It's very easy to prove the connection between cute videos leading to people watching more cute videos, leading to people having fad animals that are exotic often, and then finding ways to buy them. In Southeast Asia, there's a really big problem with not just buying exotic animals, but paying for active torture videos. It's common and horrifying. My brother passed away, so he's not here to argue about this. My brother did a really dumb thing once. He bought a sugar glider Does anybody know what sugar gliders are? Yeah, they're like cute and they're like yay big. They're nocturnal and noisy as hell. So my brother bought this sugar glider back in like 2008. I said, why did you buy a sugar glider? He said, I saw a really cute video of them online. I was like, that's not a good reason. And he's like, yeah, I really hate it. I'm like, you hate the sugar glider? He's like, yeah. Why do you hate the animal you just spent several $1,000s buying and probably illegally? And he's like, it's up all night. I'm like, what's it doing all night? He's like, I have no idea. Whenever I go out there to see what it's doing, it stops. Which led to this broader discussion of, what are you gonna do now? You have this small animal you don't like in an apartment in Oklahoma, which don't go there either. Florida, Oklahoma, off the list. And what are you gonna do? His wife hated this sugar glider. I, to this day, have no idea what happened to the sugar glider. I have a feeling he rehomed it. He wasn't that bad of a guy. He was just a little dumb sometimes. But it's that same thing. Does anyone remember back on the early internet, the videos of the slow loris where people would scratch its chest and it would fling its arms back and everyone was like, that's amazing, I love it. The slow loris was terrified. And watching videos like that, including within the animal movement, and we share them because we think they're cute too, it perpetuates the economy for all of this. So how do we, for one thing, name this problem? I've been working on this for 4 weeks now, and I still cannot name the problem. And how do we be better? How do we shift this ownership, this constant feeling like we have the right to view animals when and where we want, to something that lets animals not? Is privacy, I know these are not formed as questions, but I think they are. I think they're active questions. Is privacy an extension of autonomy? Is privacy necessary for non-humans to live a life? Is there some intrinsic or instrumental value to developing a theory of privacy that roots animals in their own interests rather than this weird, and it's weird if you really think about it, human compulsion to watch animals? We love it. We love watching animals. I do it. You're about to see a whole slide that's my dog growing up because I love to watch her. What's wrong with us? No other animal does that. Is gaze control? Is just the act of looking an extension of domination or control? If you think about it in the zoo context, which is the most obvious, you're paying a ticket, you're paying some kind of price of admission for the right to go stare at animals who can't avoid you. They can't go anywhere. Is that an act of control in and of itself? And to what extent are we responsible for the ethical implications of forced exposure? So as a lawyer, I always put legal precedents here first, I can't help it. But what are other strange, novel, nuanced ways that privacy rights have been extended? Corporations are obvious, everybody talks about corporations. I think there's more there. Other countries have done the rights of nature already. I think you can look and see a right of privacy as existing somewhere. Sanctuaries get this incredibly right. Almost every sanctuary I've ever visited has either a sign or is a note of like, you are entering the animal's home. If they don't want to be near you, you don't let them near you, like you walk away. You respect that. And I think that is something to take with us. What is the point? Should there be ethical media guidelines, either within the movement or outside the movement, that set some kind of, not necessarily regulation, but policy on what is ethical live streaming? What are ethical photography or research purposes that, not like bad research purposes, but like the research that Farm Sanctuary does into how animals are aging long past their intended time? How does that expose animals for human profit? And can we shift the burden to require both ourselves and our organizations to respect the possible desire that animals may not always want to be seen, heard, or disturbed? And language, I know, okay. Don't turn your brains off at me now. I'm not saying don't call your cat or dog baby. That's fine. They're your family. I talk to my children like that all the time. It's okay. But we can all agree the word fur baby is so cringe, right? But to a deeper extent, helpless, voiceless. they're not helpless or voiceless. They might be helpless in the moment because they were put in a circumstance or situation that made their rescue necessary. But can we shift our language to make this more active? Instead of helpless, can we put the action verb on the perpetrator instead of on the animal who's caught in circumstances beyond their control? Carol Adams, Lori Grumman did this really great analysis on ecofeminism and animal studies, the intersection for dignified narratives. Take a look. And the goal should always be to elevate dignity, not trivialize it. Here's Betty. Told you she was coming. So this is Betty. She's not really relevant other than the fact that she grew up. So this is Betty when I first adopted her when I was in law school. And there's Betty on a walk home. And there's Betty on a recent vacation we took. She's 8 years old. She hates being interrupted. Sounds crazy. So Betty will, I've got 2 children, as I mentioned, and we are always very careful that we don't, Betty's always allowed to get away from the children. We don't allow the children to harass Betty when she's eating, sleeping, living her life. I think that's really unfair. For one thing, Betty came first. But for another thing, I want to teach my children that you respect animals when they don't want to be interacted with. And so one great thing that Betty does, if my son comes into the room and he's just being a lot, she will look at us, and I know this is anthropomorphizing, but we're friends now, right? It's been like 20, we're friends. She gets up and walks up the stairs, and we will not see her until it is quiet again. She is clearly exerting an interest to not be around that energy right at that moment. And it's an example of kind of moving past this paternalistic structure that simplifies animals' lives. They're allowed to be complex beings with choices, with preferences, with agency. There can be a rights-based approach that centers on autonomy, liberty, and privacy that respects animals as evolving, mature individuals. My favorite example of this, and then I promise we're done with examples. We're not, I love stories, are pandas, right? The entire media around panda bears, there are these big, round, fluffy babies that are bad at sex, can't survive on their own, and must be constantly micromanaged. Any video you see of a panda, there's live cams. You can log onto your phone right now and find live cams of pandas just living their lives under constant human watch. And the narrative is that pandas can't maintain their own lives, even adult pandas. The conversation is never, why are pandas bad at sex? They're gonna die out. Not maybe pandas have weird preferences and social choosing we don't understand. Or are they really gonna die out because they can't take care of themselves, or is it a conservation issue? And what is the monetization that happens for these conservation groups and care centers that makes money off of this narrative, off of the videos, off of the constant portrayal of pandas? My husband and I argue vehemently about this. He thinks pandas are the worst animals. I don't think it's fair. I think pandas get a bad rap. So here's what I hope you've taken away. I hope I connected the dots. I think I did better than when I practiced earlier. We'll find out. Send me your feedback. Infantilizing justifies captivity. It denies autonomy. Online exhibition is a direct pipeline to dark parts of the internet that directly profit off of horrific animal exploitation. Our movement can inadvertently reinforce these narratives by the photos that we use, by the stories that we decide to tell, by how we characterize our campaigns. And a right to privacy can reframe animals as autonomous and not perpetual children. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Taylor. We have time for a couple of questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, to start off with, does respecting the dignity of our companion animals look different to respecting the dignity of wild animals? And if so, why?
I think absolutely, and that's one thing that I kind of struggle with how to articulate here. So if we think about wild animals, they're animals that are already existing, they're doing their own thing, they're living their own life. And then we think about domesticated animals, and I like to use dogs here as an example, partially because I've done the most research in dogs throughout my short life, long life, I don't know. Dogs have co-evolved with us and humanity over tens of thousands of years, right? We've had dogs in our burial chambers from ancient human times. They've hunted with us. They have survived with us. They still, to some extent, hold jobs, like that puppy in the commercial from last night. And so dogs are fundamentally incapable of living on their own. They can't survive on their own, hence problems with street dogs. It's fundamentally different than an animal that's doing just fine, whether you're there or not. And so this is kind of the dichotomy between what is a caregiver, what is caring, and what is controlling, right? Betty, we care for her. We let her live her life. We don't bother her. I love her dearly. She takes up a third of our bed. But that love that we feel doesn't need to be controlling. It can still be caring. And I think the question is intention, right? Is your intention to care in a dignified way? Or is your intention to exert yourself into the situation? Another great example of this is, are we tired of my stories? Can I do like one more? It's funny. My aunt makes an ass out of herself. So I was on a family vacation in Alaska, and my aunt spotted a moose off the side of the road. She stopped the car that was going 50 miles an hour. She stopped it suddenly. And this is the most American thing I can imagine telling you. Please don't judge me for this. I'm not the one that did it. She ran out of this RV in the middle of Alaska, and this 60-year-old woman goes running into the bush after this moose to get a picture taken of it. That's insane. Who does that? My aunt did. And you would never do that with a dog. You would never do that with a cat. But she felt like she had the right to get out of her vehicle, to stop traffic, to go running into the woods to take a picture of an animal that was wild, that was living its own life. I'm still shocked she didn't get trampled. It could happen. So I think the difference that you're looking for there is the intention. Is it an intention focused on dignity and care, or is it an intention focused on control?
We have time for one last quick question. Can you suggest some alternative languages to helpless, voiceless, etc.?
Yeah, I think, so this is one thing that I actually just got done teaching my students. I teach at the law school that I work at as well. And it's using active voice and focusing on who the actual perpetrator is. So when I gave this to them as an example, because I tested all my material on them, it was, how do we frame the helpless piglets were rescued in a way that doesn't frame the piglets as permanent victims? And one of the examples that I gave was the company, list the company, injured, harmed, tortured, the condition of the piglets. And it's also more powerful from a linguistic perspective if you can be more specific. Helpless doesn't say anything about what the piglets are suffering. It doesn't say anything about the condition of the piglets. It says something about the identity of them. And so how can we phrase our words in a way that's actually more descriptive, more powerful, and places the wrongdoing on the actual animal abuser?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for, but big round of applause.